Let me tell you a story. It's Texas. It's the 1970s. It's the start of a dark chapter for the people of the towns surrounding Galveston Island.
Year-old Colette Anise Wilson has been missing for 1 month now, and her whereabouts are still a mystery. She was last seen walking down County Road 99 off State Highway.
If the people of Galveston County thought Colette Wilson's brutal murder was a lone tragedy, they were mistaken. The horror was just beginning. Only weeks later, two best friends were hitchhiking on Galveston Island. Witnesses say they saw them getting into a white van.
Monday morning, 15-year-old Maria Johnson and her friend, 15-year-old Debbie Ackerman, disappeared.
For many, many years, all there was in my life was homicides, found girls, making identifications on girls. And I know from that experience what families go through. That's a never-ending pain. Family lives with it forever.
They found Maria Johnson yesterday. Today, they found Debbie Ackerman, dead, thrown into a body of water outside of Texas City. There are a lot more questions than there are answers.
People started worrying, oh my God, is there a serial killer out there?
Girls were scared, parents were scared. Are we gonna be murdered next?
The detective called and he said, "We found her body. You're not gonna see your daughter anymore."
It was hard. I mean, for myself, my mom, my stepfather, it just seemed like our whole family just unraveled and fell apart.
They had so much potential, and their lives were taken away from them before they even reached maturity.
I just remember her not coming home. I'm still living it today. This has been 40 years.
She was too warm when they found her. That was the day I lost my best friend.
Time does not heal all wounds. Not murder. It's still hell all the way to the bone.
One of the main things is to get closure and to find the killer, and we never have. It failed the parents and it's failed society.
I've got to know who did this to those girls and why.
And it's not just 2 girls or 4 girls. There was another one, and another one.
One would go, and then another one would go.
And another one.
And
another one.
And then another one. And then another one.
Until by the end of the decade, you have 11 girls.
Galveston, Texas, a place familiar with death and destruction. In 1900, a hurricane roared across the island, leaving 8,000 people dead in its wake. It remains the deadliest natural disaster in U.S. history. In the 30s and 40s, the island's mafia-owned nightclub, the BALINESE Room, with liquor and illegal gambling, drew movie stars to the Sin City of the Gulf. By the 1970s, Galveston had cleaned up its act. It became the beach destination of the entire state. Texas' waterfront playground.
Right over here
this empty part, was the music capital of the island, the bamboo hut.
Galveston really caught on to the whole hippie movement. It was just a very innocent era. You know, we had two goals. That was to get dressed and go to the beach. That was it.
It was rocking. We ruled.
All of a sudden, our innocence was taken away from us.
In 1971, the endless summers stopped, and darkness returned to the island.
615 Holiday Drive, apartment 24 in Galveston. Until Monday morning, this was home for 15-year-old Maria Johnson. But on that morning, she and her friend, 15-year-old Debbie Ackerman, disappeared.
I remember Debbie and Maria being the typical cute young gals that they were.
I went to school with Debbie and Maria. I had a class with Maria that last year. She was always like a little angel figure. You know, she was real pretty and just real soft, real sweet.
Maria Johnson was a dark-headed, attractive young girl, full of energy, newcomer to town. We did go out once in a while, you know, to the movies, go out to, you know, dinner or something like that, or a couple of parties, I don't know. I was 17 years old, my gosh. How would I even want to remember that far back?
I know Debbie surfed a lot. I surfed with Debbie. I don't really, Maria, I don't, you know, it's been like 40-something years ago.
40 years is a long time. Memories fade. Photographs get lost. People move on. Maria Johnson's childhood was unsettled. When her parents split, she regularly moved homes and changed schools. By 1971, she found herself as the new girl at Ball High, Galveston. Friends at the time said the pretty, shy girl fit in immediately. Maria was an avid water skier. She dated local ski jumper Bubba Forrester. But hands down, best friend was the bubbly, outgoing Debbie Ackerman. Debbie had one striking characteristic. One of her eyes was brown, and the other blue, or green, depending on whom you asked. Debbie was what the islanders called a BOI. She was born on the island. Like Maria, Debbie was passionate about water sports. She made the local news in skiing competitions, and like a lot of her friends, she loved to surf.
Friday was the last time in school that I saw them.
We'd all been together the night before, Maria and Debbie. I think everybody went to the theater. On Monday, we all went different places. It was a holiday. It was probably one of the last warm days of the year. So my cousin and I went surfing. And then late in the afternoon, nobody heard from them. Then as it got really late, 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, and no answer at all, was like, you know, what's going on here?
I would give anything to be able to know who did this.
No one expected this to happen, not on Galveston Island, and not to your friends. We're here at Offutt's Bayou, which is where the story takes place. All the cast and the characters, the victims, this was their playground back in 1971.
I'm Fred Page, retired investigator with the Galveston Police Department. Joined the department in 1988, and I retired about 2.5 years ago. In the 80s and early 90s, murders were not infrequent in Galveston with shootouts every week. We did make a difference on the island. There's no doubt in my mind.
We used to put the bad guys away, didn't we?
Yeah.
Fred had a reputation for closing cases, and in 2005, a cold case landed on his desk. The unsolved murders of Debbie Ackerman and Maria Johnson. Two murdered girls, and no one to answer for it. He started digging into the original police files.
The bodies were found in Texas City. So I contacted the Texas City Police Department, and I met with crime analysts there. And, you know, I asked her, did you ever come up with a best suspect? Do you have a best suspect? And she says, give me a minute. She came back with a letter. It was a confession letter. There was an inmate identified in the letter as Edward Harold Bell. Edward Bell had murdered a guy named Larry Dickens in 1978. And he's writing this letter from prison. And, you know, you read the first 3 lines, I mean, it says, "Dear Sir,
I've figured out that I have been on a brainwash murder program most of my life. I was brainwashed into killing Debbie Ackerman and Maria Johnson in November of 1971. I have also killed 5 other girls in Galveston County. This is a statement of facts. Yours truly, Edward Harold Bell."
Now, bam, 7 girls. Well, either this guy is a kook, is this just a nutcase, false confession? Could he have actually killed 7 girls in Galveston County? Who is this guy? Well, thanks. Come, Mike, have a seat, and I'll sit right next to you.
Right.
Mr. Green, I want to show you this letter that Ed Bell wrote, I guess, to your office. Your office received it on or about January 6, 1998. You remember seeing that letter?
Yes, I do.
Dear Sir, I've figured out that I have been on a brainwash murder program most of my life. And Maria was shot with a .357 Mag pistol. I have also killed 5 other girls in Galveston County. This is a statement of fact. This is a statement of fact. Yours truly, Edward Harold Bell. Edward Harold Bell.
After receiving this letter from Bell, where he says he participated in the murder of 7 people, I pulled together my chief investigator to go interview him in the penitentiary. Unfortunately, when they went to him, he gave them no information and refused to talk to them.
Why do you think the investigation went no further?
I've handled many, many capital murder cases, many serial rapists, and I can tell you that they are sick puppies. Anybody that reads this letter, you don't have to be a trained psychologist, could say, this guy's weird. And there's something, you know, there's some wires that are definitely not connected.
It struck me that after the initial investigation, that letter got put in a file cabinet and forgotten about.
Listen, at that point, we were not going to go forward with anything. If you've been around long enough, you have a feel for it. And I just didn't think that he did it. You know, you do have to trust your judgment.
The DA's gut told him Ed Bell's confession was false. Fred's instinct, though, was that Bell was telling the truth.
These murders are 45 years old. That, to me, is such an injustice right there. These families want closure. And when I read this letter, I wanted to find out, is this true? Could he have done it? There's gaps to fill, there's people to interview, people that knew these girls, the parents, the families, an eyewitness, or somebody that heard something directly from a suspect. And I'm just looking to find that one missing piece that will convince me that, beyond a reasonable doubt, that this guy did it.
Fred's convinced Bell holds the secrets, but he's had all his interview requests refused. So now he's collaborating with the first person Bell did agree to talk with, Houston Chronicle journalist Lisa Olson.
This is the first time that Fred and I are together in the same place. It's going to be good to work together on what are our leads that we need to follow up on. Fred told me there was a guy named Ed Bell who had confessed to being a serial killer in the 70s, and no one had really ever done anything about it. So I decided I would try to go and interview him. And it was sort of surprising to me, actually, that he agreed to speak to me. He kind of shuffled in, and I was on a phone, he was on a phone, through a thick pane of glass.
How are you?
I'm alive. How are you?
He right away was willing to talk about what he called the program.
Since his first confession, Bell has always said he's the real victim. He seems to believe that government agents working on a secret operation called the Program somehow brainwashed him into committing acts of violence.
I want to know more about the program.
It started at an early age. My life is not normal. Something's wrong.
Do you think that the program made you kill 7 girls?
I think the program is what caused me to do the bad things that I did in my life.
Was the program making you want to rape girls?
I did have that problem.
Do you remember a girl named Debbie Ackerman or a girl named Maria Johnson?
I can't discuss anything that might be used against me in a court of law.
It was riveting, and it made me think there was some door opening, and I didn't know it was going to come through that door.
Edward Bell's early years showed no hint of the man he was to become. He went to college at Texas A&M, where he played the trombone in the Aggie Marching Band. Soon after, he met his first wife, an 18-year-old student. He went on to become a successful businessman and the father of 3 children. Bell seemed like a normal guy, but his arrest record tells a different story. Bell is a predatory pedophile. He was charged 7 times for sex crimes against girls. To avoid serving time, Bell would cut deals to get psychiatric treatment instead.
We have a man that stopped in a pickup truck, and he's nursing his waist down, and he's playing with himself out in the street.
In 1978, a former Marine named Larry Dickens catches Bell in the act of exposing himself to a group of children. Bell shoots him with a .22 caliber pistol. With Dickens dying, his mother watches as Bell takes up his M1 carbine and pulls the trigger. A single fatal shot between the eyes. He receives a 70-year prison sentence. There's no doubt Bell is dangerous. He's a convicted murderer. But can Fred and Lisa prove he's the Galveston serial killer?
After I'd interviewed Ed Bell, I started writing to him, and to my surprise, he wrote to me. Ed Bell likes to write poems. This one is called The 11 Who Went to Heaven. So who is to blame for this horrible mess? It is the descendants of G-Man Elliot Ness. All of those who fell were as brave can be. The only coward who was there was me. And he sent me a list. I know some of these correspond to unsolved murder cases. This list has 10 people, 10 in all, I think. And now he gives me another list, and they actually go together pretty well, but he's added one to this list. 11 who went to heaven is a phrase that really struck me. Oh my God, could that possibly be true?
How can 11 girls in the 70s go missing? And here we are today, and no suspect was identified. It is unbelievable. Looking back, I believe they dropped the ball.